Hi, I'm Pat Zaby. I'm here with my friend David Knox, joining you on Real Estate Live to talk to you about another financing segment. You know, we depend upon our mortgage officers to provide us with all the information on the different products that are out there, but it's really our responsibility to understand them. Just like if we were a carpenter, we need to know what tools are in our toolbox and when to use them. And right now I want to talk to you about adjustable rate mortgages. With interest rates as low as they are right now, do you realize that only 3% of the people are getting adjustable rate mortgages? Well, you may be saying to yourself, well, why does that even matter? Fixed rate mortgages are so low. The reason is it provides the lowest cost of housing. I actually had one agent say to me, I would never recommend an adjustable rate mortgage to anyone. She's putting her values onto her prospect, and what she really needs to do is to provide information and let their prospect actually make the decision for themselves. So what we need to do is figure out who makes the best candidate for an adjustable rate mortgage. Well, I'd like to think that it wasn't a first-time home buyer. It needs to be a person that maybe is more risk tolerant, as an example. That would be a person that would be a good candidate for an adjustable rate mortgage. Somebody that maybe is a little more financially savvy. Somebody that is not going to stay in the home a long time. Possibly somebody that's in professional graduate school. Now, back in the 80s, we used adjustable rate mortgages for people because they couldn't afford the high interest rates. And they always thought, well, maybe I'll be making more money later on when the rates go up. That's not the reason you use an adjustable rate mortgage now. We use them now because we're going to be in the home a short time and it will provide us the cheapest cost of housing while we're in the home. If a person's been in the corporate world and he's been transferred a lot, perfect candidate for an adjustable rate mortgage. Let's look at a simple example here comparing a 5/1 ARM. That means it's fixed for 5 years and then it adjusts every year after that, against a fixed rate mortgage. In this example, 3.25% interest rate against 4.75% interest rate. Now obviously the payments are going to be cheaper on the 5/1 ARM. They're actually going to save almost $173 a month for 5 years. But here's something that a lot of people don't understand. The unpaid balance on the adjustable rate mortgage is much less than that of the fixed rate mortgage at the end of the 5-year period, to the tune of $4,382. Now, if you add both the monthly savings and the lower unpaid balance, the overall savings on this adjustable rate mortgage in the first period alone is $15,600. If that particular buyer knew they weren't going to be in the home for more than 5 years, the adjustable rate is absolutely the best way to go. Let's look at some of the components of an adjustable rate mortgage just so that we'll be familiar with all the terms. The first one I want to look at is called the index. This is an independent reference point that the lender has no control over whatsoever. And if this reference point changes, well then it could affect the payment. There are 3 indexes that are probably used more often than others: the Constant Maturity Index, the 11th District Cost of Funds, and the 1-year Treasury Average. Now, all these indexes are published on the internet, so they're very apparent when they're out there. But that doesn't make up the interest rate by itself. The next term we need to look at is the margin. Now, the margin is the spread between the index and what is called the fully indexed rate, which is the amount they can actually charge the person. And an example of that would simply be that if the index was published on a particular day, in this example that we've got up here on the screen right now, if the index was 1% on the day that it was to be adjusted and the margin was 2.5%, then the maximum they could charge would be 3.5%, assuming that it did not exceed the caps, which is our next term. Caps limit the change of the rate, and there are 2 types of caps. There are periodic caps and there are lifetime caps. On conventional loans, what we've got are typically 2% per period, 6% over the lifetime, or on an FHA it's 1% per period, 5% over the lifetime. Well, that's much better for most of the buyers because it limits the maximum amount it can go up, and it goes up at a much slower rate. The last thing that we need to look at is the initial interest rate period. some people quote 5/1 ARMs as being fixed for 5 years and then a 1-year ARM. Well, technically it's an ARM the entire time. It can adjust. It's just that the very first period is either 5 years, 3 years, 7 years, 10 years. Well, obviously when you get into a 10/1 ARM, the situation is that it's very close to a fixed rate mortgage. Well, why not go ahead and get a fixed rate if you're going to do that? Let's look at this example. We've got a $270,000 mortgage for 30 years. The adjustable rate mortgage is 2 7/8% on a 5/1 ARM, which means it's fixed for 5 years. We're going to compare that with a 4 1/4 fixed rate mortgage. Now, by any standards, that's an incredibly low rate, and most people would like to have that rate. But what we're trying to find out here is which mortgage will give them the cheapest cost of housing. So, when we hit calculate, it tells us that the break-even point is 9 years and 5 months. Now, what that really means is this. If the interest rate goes up, the most it can go up at each adjustment period, it would take 9 years and 5 months for all the savings from the early periods to be exhausted. Let me give you an analogy of this to help you understand. In the first year, we actually saved $207 a month for 5 years because it was a 5-year ARM. Well, let's pretend we didn't spend that money, which most of us would probably do. Let's pretend that we rat hole that money in a shoebox in our closet. Each and every month we're putting another $207 in the shoebox. Well, at the end of 5 years, we have over $12,000 in that shoebox. Well, it started out with a 2 7/8% interest rate. The most it can go up is 1% in that first year for next period, so it goes up to 3 7/8. That's still below 4 1/4. We're still saving money in the 6th year on this mortgage. It's not until the 7th year when it goes to 5 7/8 or 4 7/8 that it actually is over the 4 1/4. But what happens at that point is pretend we start dragging money out of the shoebox to pay the difference. The shoebox is not empty out of money until 9 years and 5 months. Well, that's a long time. According to the NAR study that's out right now, the average person stays in a home 10 years. The U.S. Census Bureau says that people are staying in homes 12 years. A lot of social scientists right now say that if what happens after, they're calling this the Great Recession, what happened after the Great Depression, people stayed in homes even longer. So possibly they're going to stay in homes longer than they have been in the past. Well, if they know they're moving, if they fit this profile, and they're definitely going to stay in this home less than 9 years and 5 months, the ARM will provide them the cheapest cost of housing. But let me show you one more thing here before I actually leave this chart. I want to point this at unpaid balance after the first period. This is something that is sort of a phenomenon that a lot of people don't understand. The unpaid balance after 5 years on the fixed rate mortgage is $245,000. The unpaid balance on the adjustable rate mortgage is $239,500. That's almost $6,000 less. That's because loans at the lower interest rate amortize faster. That's not even considered in this 9 years and 5 months. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up to you right now is the simple fact that some people really do need to consider an adjustable rate mortgage because it will provide them the cheapest cost of housing. It may not be right for everyone, but it is right for some people. You know, you need to put your personal beliefs aside. If you think you're going to live in this house for the rest of your life, well then get a fixed rate mortgage, for goodness sakes. But if you think you're only going to be in the house a short time, if you know that you're going to be moving, or you're going to come into a lot of money that you can pay this property down, the adjustable rate mortgage may be the right product for you. I'm Pat Zaby, and I want to thank you for joining us on Real Estate Live.